Yeah, no, but it's the way we can see now. This table, which is now being put to good use on a teacup, is it was the most blissfully accomplished fix that I've done at the Repair Cafe. I just had to bolt on the top to the base.
So what have you had fixed today?
I've had my daughter's radio CD fixed, and she'll be thrilled. I don't think it was a major thing, but the main thing was telling us how to tune it and do it.
We don't know much from school, something like this. So it's the genealogy. It was on the commemorating Queen Victoria in 1987, and it's all the royal family all the way back to Ethelred. Whenever, I don't think it's that.
Mythical people.
Mythical people. King Alfred and his cakes and everything like that. And this little bit was the damage, with it being very fine. It's sort of paper backed with a fabric, and it had with folding over and over. This is disintegrated, and so we just ironed on some violin. Normally we use that for pairing clothes, but just for a little bit different. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of white showing through. But Dave is very understanding. He says, "We're not the repair shop. We're the repair cafe. We fix things, not restore things."
Right, it's basically the joints. It's, you know, like which happens quite often on these chairs, has come apart.
So the wonderful glue and clamp.
Oh yes, absolutely proper. I mean, you don't know it's traps if it's trimming it. You didn't have a musical box and a clock, I hope.
How lovely.
We'll see whether or not it's possible. Yeah, an overwound clock door that's coming off the musical. So, need a couple of little screws and then investigation for that. We'll have to take advice about that.
Brilliant. Nothing amusing. And what is it you've brought in?
I've brought a printer in that wants resetting after I've fitted a new ink pad.
Ah, right. I'm sure Simon will be able to.
Edge to be firmer, so I've just edged it there with some extra, the amazing iron-on violin, which is 1,001 uses.
It's a Swiss cooker clock.
It's beautiful.
About 1940s, I would guess.
Yes.
And what's wrong with it?
It's not working.
It's not working.
It's not,
That's right.
it's not
This is it could be 50 years old, or something like that, I'm guessing.
It's like exactly 50, 60s, isn't it?
Yes. Because it's like a bake-like plastic, isn't it? It's like a very old plastic. So it's like press moulded plastic. You can see this and headless. And the plan is to, but fortunately they've got all the hooks intact here. And having done one doll already, I feel confident enough to have another go at and restringing this, although I might use some thinner elastic. So I'm going to, I've got with a crochet hook, knot the legs together, and then hook them up through the head, into the inside the head, and then hopefully all the joints are, and she'll be legged once more. She will be restored to full working order, we hope. So watch the space.
Good luck.
So here we have two pairs of favourite work trousers, but both of them have got big holes in the same place. And what we want to do is to make one good pair of work trousers, because there's plenty of fresh canvas on the back, and he will end up with one pair of his favourite work trousers.
Have you had much to sharpen today?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. Yeah. It must be the summer months, and people are starting to get in the garden and realising their gardening tools are a bit blunt. So, yes, lots of edge cutters, lots of shears, lots of secateurs. Yeah.
Okay, what have you had done?
Zip.
A zip on
the. It's a dog bag actually.
Oh, is it?
That's the idea from Danby.
Take it out.
A dog's handbag. Brilliant, thank you.
I don't mind being dog, but I'm a bit like a spare part.
That's it for us.
Yeah.
Nice, smart trousers are much too wide. So we're having to take this much out of them, which is quite a lot. So to do that, we have to take off the waistband and narrow them and put it back on. We'll do our best. And these are also too, these are also too wide, and similar thing will need to happen. You have to take some fabric out of them.
Wow.
Breaking things, yes.
Well, that'd be
Good.
And he was strapping it on. How could he not? Well, he then fell on the ball, so he could be trapping the ball.
I've just sent a WhatsApp message. Mike's at home trying out to see whether the Zoom message works. No. It's not that's dangerous. You're going to be that might be the book. I think the reason we're trying Zoom is because two of our steering group are actually away. Just a minute. Right, I will just check what messages. Alternative technology. Okay. You can hear us. Yeah. So I think we can't hear it. We shouldn't be able to. Yeah.
I can hear all of you. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark. That's right. I see you.
Oh, right, good.
I can hear all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hey.
Okay, so Mike, if you want to mute yourself, I'll probably hide your picture most of the time, but if you come on, if you want to say anything.
That's not very nice.
That's it's quite a complex but they will support.
I've not seen them yet. Because the other one was higher up.
Yeah, you've got to have something in mind to do before we put it.
So, I think it'd be worth getting started. And as I say, the idea behind having it on Zoom as well as face to face was that we did have a few people that were away, that it would be good if they could join. Bridget's in Shetland, and Ron's in Fort William. So it does depend on their sort of ability to join in, but they do send their apologies for not being here. And Mike's sat in Great Ayton checking whether Zoom works. As you can see, it sort of works. So welcome to the Climate Action Stokesley Villages AGM. This is our second AGM, and we're still ironing out some of the way we work as a sort of a group, really. So apologies if anybody didn't get some papers that were supposed to get papers. We have like a formal membership, and we were trying it out last year, and I know a couple of people who became members didn't actually get their papers, so I apologise. I think everybody got notice of the meeting, which was the important thing, and we'll go through things this evening. So I've been given the controls, so we'll just see whether, and I think, Simon, are you recording this?
I'm recording this. If you don't want to be recorded, don't speak.
But you can sort of wave a hand, and we do want to hear from people.
You need to point to the computer rather than the.
Oh, you see, you pointed it that way, so no. It doesn't work.
I know.
There we are. So, very quick look at the minutes from last year. Quick report on the activities, and I think it's always a good opportunity to stop and take stock, because it's amazing what we've actually accomplished, and then there are gaps, and it's what we actually want to move on to. Report on the finances. We don't actually have an election of the steering group, because the constitution we adopted, which is part of the Friends of the Earth support, we're appointed for a 3-year period. So tonight we've got Jack here, myself, Simon, Ron and Bridget, who send their apologies. But if anybody else is interested, then let us know. It's always good to maybe plot somebody on for a bit and share the skills around. So that's
Helen, I'm not sure if you know, can you hear me? Heather, I'm not sure if you can see, I've just joined the meeting. All right.
Brilliant, Heather. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. It's just I had a few problems getting on, so I wasn't sure if you knew I was there. Okay, thank you.
So that's Councillor Heather Morehouse speaking on her way back from visiting family. So again, another reason for trying Zoom. So it's good to welcome people who have sort of come along to meetings on a frequent basis, but also people who are sort of interested in what we're doing and help where they can. So Heather's here representing sort of the Great Ayton and sort of area around there. We've got Bryn also representing Stokesley on the county council, and we've got a number of parish councillors around as well, which is really good. So I think it might be worth just saying who they are at the moment. We've got Spencer from Rugby, we've got Audrey from Stokesley, we've got Catherine from Midcape, Billsdale, we've got Derek from Rugby as well. Have I missed anybody? And Bryn's also on Stokesley Town Council. So it's really good, because the idea of the group really is that we're working residents, councillors, people who've got jobs in the area, businesses and things, and bringing everybody together. So let me just check if there's anything else we need to look at. So we're going to have a very short AGM, and then what we want to spend time looking at is something called the impact tool, which we came across a little bit ago, and it's developed by the University of Exeter in connection with the Centre for Sustainable Energy. And they've looked at giving us an idea of our carbon footprint by parish level, so we can compare. And we thought that was a good thing to do tonight, we'll look back at what we've done, what might we be able to do, and they've got a whole set of questions for us to think about. So we think that would be useful activity. So first thing on the AGM really is the draft minutes. So I've put some copies in front of you. So there were some of you who were here last year. So we had a report that we're going to do. We looked at finances. We elected the steering group, and we passed a resolution, which is to do with if we were wound up, what would happen to our money. And that was required by Heritage Lottery Fund for a grant that I'll tell you a little bit about in a few minutes. So could I have somebody who's there at the meeting to say that that was, so Bryn, yeah, and Kate, yeah, no. That's great. Okay, so that was the draft, that's the minutes, okay. So now I'm going to take you through some slides, which just to give you an overview of the group, really, for those of you who haven't sort of come along before, and a reminder to those of you who are sort of a lot more involved. So we've got a number of subgroups. We've got energy, where we're looking at reducing use of energy whilst increasing the use of renewable energy. We've got food, very much about promoting sustainable food in different ways. Nature, saving what's already here, so we're very lucky in our area. There are lots of interesting things to develop further and to plant more trees. Waste, very much reducing, reusing, recycling. Simon, are there anything to add to those three words that we chose before?
We were kind of around the sort of focus of consumables, reducing consuming.
Reducing consumables, so reducing, yes. And transport, reducing the use of petrol, diesel vehicles in a variety of ways. So thanks to our subgroup leaders, we've got Spencer who looks after energy, Barry who looks after transport, Jenny and Wendy sat next to each other nearly, who look after food, and Simon who looks after waste, and Bridget looks after the nature group. So we've held public meetings monthly, and then also the waste and food groups have had meetings often online, which has proved a useful way of bringing people together without us all having to get into cars. We're grateful for a couple of grants that we've received this year, one from Stokesley Town Council, which we're using and will be using towards publicity material, making people aware of things that are going on in sort of different ways, and also when we have to hold a big event to help with the room hire. And we also had a grant from Friends of the Earth for a banner competition. And so that was involving children and students in the school producing some banners. And we're now going to look at how, and they were judged at the last AGM, that we're now going to look at how we actually use those banners in a different way. Taking on to sort of publicity. We're getting more and more people knowing about it, so the more you can tell people about it, the better. So last year we had 2,387 visitors to the website. So we're constantly adding different things to the website, whether it's notes from the waste group. We did try a sort of sharing recipe section, so if anybody's got interesting recipes that they think they want to share, we've got space to put recipes on. Wide variety of things, so do have a look. Our mailing list is going up. It's interesting that a lot more people are interested in Facebook, so getting their news through Facebook rather than getting a monthly update. So the monthly update also appears on Facebook. And we're starting to develop things like Twitter and Instagram. So if anybody has expertise in all the other social media, TikTok and whatever's the latest Threads, is it? But I think that's maybe a different demographic. We want to try and reach a wider, younger demographic. So do let us know. Sent in quite a few press releases to the Darlington Stockton Times, and we've been writing for over a year now a climate column for the Darlington Stockton Times. So I think there's turn the page over at the back. You were reading it. We're not just falling asleep at the newspaper, you were reading our climate column, which was in last Friday, which was to do with transport. And we also write about the letters in a minute. So we do some campaigning on climate and nature emergencies. So we write to our MP on a range of issues. We write and meet with local councillors. And we also respond to letters in the Darlington Stockton Times. So we've got quite a good relationship now with the editor of the Stockton Times. Jenny managed to have a personal connection which helped us in, and I think that made a difference. But Hannah Chapman is really pleased with the tone of the letters that we sent her. You know, she feels that she can trust our sort of voice, which I think is quite important, really. So there's been quite spate of letters from climate deniers, people who don't believe that the current climate change is caused by us and what we do. And so we try wherever possible to send in a reply so that there's a more balanced view coming. And we campaign as part of the North Yorkshire Climate Coalition, which has got going over the last year or so and is bringing together as much as possible all the different environmental groups across North Yorkshire. We're going to expand, I think, to include York with the view to if there would be a mayor for York and North Yorkshire, it seems sensible for us all to work together. And that's providing a voice, particularly to work with North Yorkshire Council, so that they've got one group coming to them rather than lots and lots of different separate voices. So we're trying to sort of work together as to how we're going to sort of work with the council. Sort of things were done. We've held events like the Love Food Hate Waste, where somebody from North Yorkshire Rotters came and talked a lot about what happens to waste, how we can reduce waste. We had a talk on seals, and particularly so from a nature point of view, how seals are being impacted with climate change. We had a talk on peat restoration and the work of the Yorkshire Peat Partnership. So a wide variety of things going on. We ran a successful transport themed event in last July. It seems a long, long time ago, since our last AGM. And that was a great event in Stokesley Town Hall, where there was lots of different stalls from different groups working on transport, and a chance to try out e-bikes and things, and see electric cars, and talk to car owners, talk to electric bike owners, talk to people who promote the bus services like Moore's Bus, and then there's an organisation called Harbus, which tries to provide timetable information. More recently, we held a number of events during Great Big Green Week in June. So we had a number of wildflower walks. Helen opened her garden, wildlife garden, which was very, very well received. And we had one of our successful repair cafes, which we'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. Alongside all of that, Jenny coordinates our food share scheme, where we're collecting surplus food from the co-ops in the area and redistribute that. In the autumn, we ran apple pressing, so we took over some apple pressing equipment, and we plan to do that again this autumn. So if you're going to have lots of apples on your trees, look out for that. And that's a way of saving just the apples going to waste, because often people, they can't cope with cooking them. If you can turn them into juice, that's great. Wendy's run a seed swap stall. We've got seed swap boxes, Helen's Garden. We helped Tees Rivers Trust and a charity whose name has gone from me, coordinate volunteers for planting trees. So there was 2,500 trees planted in the area. So if you could picture Captain Cook's monument down at the bottom of there was a lot with Tees Rivers Trust, and we helped get volunteers for that. The wildflower walks, I think it was nearly 70 people went on those in total. So, what we find is by doing lots of different activities, it's a good way to have conversations about the climate, because people are interested in different things. It's a way of getting them in. We now manage the bug trail in Great Ayton. So if anybody wants more information about that, I can tell you a bit later. And we've worked to raise the profile of 20's Plenty. I know Audrey's doing lots of work in Stokesley on that. Look, North Yorkshire Council, I think it was the executive, had turned down the proposal of having 20-mile-an-hour zones everywhere. I think that's being challenged. It's being taken to review by the Transport Committee. So it's watch this space at the moment. But certainly, a lot of the local parishes around here are very keen to put 20-mile-an-hour speed limit to encourage people to walk and cycle rather than use your car. Repair cafes, I think that's probably our most effective way of reaching lots of people. And Simon, I think you said you run 12 repair cafes, so that's once a month, either in Swainby or Stokesley. And what was it? 600 visits, 440 items examined, with nearly 70% repaired. So I think that's pretty impressive, and that's saving things that people would just have thrown out. And also, I think very much about teaching people how you repair things as well. And that actually has the most hits to our website as well. So it's something, a way of getting people interested. And if you haven't been to one, if you haven't even anything you need repairing, because the atmosphere is brilliant. It's that feeling of a community working together. And we've also maintained a refill scheme. So that's where shops and cafes are signing their window of a water tap, which allows shows that you can go in and ask for your water bottle to be refilled. And we had an upcycling post competition just recently with nearly 40 entrants. It was more than that actually, by the sounds of it, I think. And is that what's up there?
That's just as you come in on the left.
Right, so before you leave, have a look at the posters. I haven't had a chance to see them yet, so that's why I wasn't sure. So that was with a lot of schools and youth groups in the area. I think a lot of the entrants were from Stokesley School. Is that right? I'm looking at you, Jack. Jack's our link for Stokesley School, but he's going to.
So there are 42 entries in the 11 to 14 Stokesley School.
Yeah.
We have 3 junior school people as well. So
Yeah.
5
That's great. And we're starting to try and work more with schools, but obviously they're very busy with their curriculum. So it's how we can work with other youth groups, maybe, is a way in. But certainly, now that Jack's off to university, he's going to help advise us on that sort of thing. And we're going to see how we can work still with Stokesley Secondary School.
Anyone?
Yeah.
The call in on the 20 mile an hour is
Yeah.
on the 26th of April. At 2 o'clock.
26th of April.
Sorry, 26th of this month.
No, it's right.
I've been reading also. And there is an opportunity for public questions to be put and statements to be made.
Okay.
So I would encourage that.
Right. Okay. So we'll come back to you before you leave, Bryn, on what we need to do with that. That's great. So we've kept up our work with local businesses, particularly with Labman. So it's great to see a couple of links with Labman here tonight. And also with different parish councils. So Rugby Parish Council with the Trees for Tomorrow, and trying to support you with any funding that we know about. Stokesley Town Council have been trialling No More May again this year, and Great Ayton Parish Council have got a pollinator flag that we're helping work with. Christchurch in Great Ayton, there's an eco church, and working towards, I think, the next level. I think it's Swainby church working on something similar, as far as I know. We've got the Globe here in the Discovery Centre, very much trying to be recycling centres for the things that you can't put in your blue bin. So it's good to keep that up. And what else have we got going on? Yatton House Society in Great Ayton are developing a community garden, which we're helping work on. So I was there this afternoon with 12 Texan teenagers who created a herb bed. They moved the stove, put them in place, planted a shrub in the rosemary plant in the middle, told me they really like rosemary, and the mum used basil with it, various herbs. So that was really good just to see them sort of get into that. That worked well. And again, as I say, we're trying to continue our links with Stokesley School. And in case you didn't know, they've now got a whole array of solar panels. This happened without Jack knowing, without us knowing, even though we sort of talked to the school. So somehow somebody has said yes, and they now have a lot of solar panels on the roof. So that's brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant, yes. And George had asked me what had happened about solar for schools. We'd approached all the primary schools in the area and Stokesley School saying there's a scheme where they will provide funding, or you can part fund it, we can help. For various reasons, I know in Rugby, I think it's probably the roof, and therefore they can't do anything until they know what's happening to the roof. Rosebery Academy in Great Ayton is having a complete rebuild. I met with their head recently, and they're going to keep us informed. So I said, if you can't afford it, part of your rebuild, so put solar panels on, can we maybe help? before you get to the building the roof. It's cheaper to put it on at the time. So there's lots of reasons why we haven't got, but we have got one Stokesley, so that's good. And the other thing we've done is, particularly Mark and Spencer and Simon, there was a development of a local area energy plan for Stokesley. Hasn't been pushed yet, really. This was part of the work of the local enterprise partnership across York and North Yorkshire. There is now a plan online showing what could be done in the Stokesley area. They've taken as a case study. And they've done that because there was an active local group. That's why they chose Stokesley, I think. And we can't give you lots of information yet, but there's going to be a project across North Yorkshire to do a retrofit, advice on retrofitting that we're going to be part of. And again, it's because we've taken part in these regional consultations, we've spoken to people that they say, yes, do you want to be involved? So that's good. So all that's with not very much money, really. So it's interesting, you can do quite a bit without much money, even though if we had more money, we could do things like employ somebody or pay somebody to do things. So we started off with the year with just over £1,800. Of that, 1,700 was restricted for management of the bug trail in Great Ayton. So that was a grant from Great Ayton Parish Council to manage the bug trail. During the year, we had the grants from Friends of the Earth and Stokesley Town Council. So on the back of your draft minutes, there are the detailed accounts for those that like lots of sort of detail. Yeah. And Heather, we will email them to you if you want them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So during the year, the repair cafes brought in nearly £1,000, £989. That is with people donating, which is really good, because the Globe here provide the facilities free because they want people to come in and use it. And I think Swainbury Village Hall, we get that free, is that right?
Yeah, we pay rent for that.
We pay rent for that, yeah.
And we've been buying equipment and things like this with some of the money.
Yes. So we get money in, and so, but on the whole, we're getting a lot more in than we're spending. And it's at the moment thinking, well, what do we do with that money? The apple pressing netted £185, and we had donations of just over £300. We haven't had much expenditure. We have things to pay. We've paid for membership of Community Energy England because they do a lot of campaigning work at a government level on improving the situation for community energy. So we thought it was worthwhile having that. As I say, the detail is on the back. What else do you need to know about money? So we're left with just over £3,200. Of that, 1,297 is restricted, so that's for the bug trail. And unrestricted, we've got just under £2,000. We're not desperate to spend it immediately because we do want to have a bit of a buffer. But if people have got ideas on what we might do, or you think we need to do something, then let us know. One thought I have is we had a talk from Sally from the Seal Partnership, and she's some lovely display materials professionally produced. We don't have anything like that. We have whatever we cobble together on our computers. And I think it was just up our game a bit to have something that was printed nicely. So if we're putting a display on, then people will look at it in a different way to something I've designed and put together, but that's just my thought. So we can come back to that sort of later. Does anybody have any questions about sort of the finances or about achievements? Realise I've rattled through it all. But,
yes, sorry, Karen. I mean, obviously, it's a great presentation. You've all been extremely busy. And is it time to talk about partnerships? And, obviously, spending, you're on about trying to sort of make it, push out the story about do you put stands in sort of like local, Stokesley shows coming up or local village shows? Is that something you'd consider? Have you done that, going out and putting a stand up somewhere? Or is that, obviously, I'm not quite sure how far and wide you're spreading, your climate change. Obviously we've got lots of, villages, how far are you reaching out there, Karen, to it all?
Right, well, we cover sort of Craythorne, to Swainby, to Great Ayton, out to Billsdale, Stokesley, that sort of, so the old community partnership area,
Right.
And last year we offered our services to Stokesley Show to help them with recycling, and they didn't want the help. But Billsdale Show heard about it and said, yes, please. So Simon, do you want to give an update on what happened last year and this coming year?
So basically, Billsdale Show reached out to us and said, we don't know what to do about our recycling. We understand you were going to do Stokesley's recycling. And we said, well, we're not, but yeah, we'd love to help you. So then we talked to Tracy Flint in Hamilton, who's the recycling officer. She arranged all the bins and all these things, and us plus North Yorkshire Rotters plus Tracy Flint basically had a stall. We kept an eye on the recycling. I mean, in essence, if people put some bins, there isn't too much to do, but encouraging people and talking to them. And unfortunately, you know, food stuff isn't always the best stuff to recycle, but it's trying to get a message out there. So we had some really good conversations with people, and you know, it's a great show, you know, fun, and a good thing to do. And I think, yeah, we could look at doing, you know, we could in a way try and do some other shows as there are other ones. I mean, Pinkerton, for example, there's not in our, you know, catchment area. Stokesley Show, yeah, we probably need to go back about now for next year if we wanted to do next year. It's just, I think we got up on the wrong foot, that there is an issue. If we take the recycling out of the waste, it probably costs them more to get the rest of the waste taken away, because we're taking out the value of the reason that the waste company can then extract. So, you know, it's a tricky thing to do.
So the answer is we started, we're going to Billsdale again. Heather.
Yeah, there's Kildare as well. I mean, they're quite, I mean, the other point is, I mean, again, I'm sort of coming into this, not having all the information, and possibly I should, probably it'd been easier if I'd come along tonight, but, you know, obviously the national parks do form part of the, on your boundary with Kildare and, you know, Battersby, and they, you know, I mean, if you ever, they've got a very active, like, climate change group, and I'm not quite sure how we could help, but it's all part of the same thing what we're doing, really. And that's something for me, you know, if I chat with the officers and things and they want to link in with you, that would be okay, wouldn't it?
I think that'd be brilliant. So the Heather sits on the North York Moors National Park Authority. So quite a bit of our area is within the national park. So
yeah.
These partnerships better, Heather. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just, you know, I'll have a chat and see where you can, because obviously it's lots of things that even about cleaning the rivers up and things like this, lots of things like, you know, they do all sorts of volunteering and things like that. And alongside this, it might just be, you know, collective sort of like working, but thanks for that. At least I've got your heads up on that one. Thank you.
That would be great. And thinking of a volunteer with the National Park, Bridget has just joined us from Shetland. So that's great, Bridget. Hopefully you can hear us. But we won't ask you about your national park ranger work. Well, there she is. Been through the finances, Bridget, so you're saved from that. Is that all right? Yeah, I think that's
fine. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm coming and going, so I have to keep walking out the house, walking out the hotel to go and get a collection. So, okay. Oh, I think I might be in me.
So we are holding a recycling stall and stall at Billsdale Show again on the 26th of August, and we've got another repair cafe on the 12th of August. Apart from Heather, are there any other sort of points or anything I've missed? Because there might be.
Well, not really, but just to add, and Bryn's part of the group. Obviously, moving forward with the new council, remember we used to have things called like the Stokesley Community Group. Well, we're just launching the first sort of like community hubs to see how we're going to replace these sort of like in each sort of town or large village, and they're just testing about, I think there's 7 or 8 throughout the county to see what would fit. So hopefully Stokesley was in the second phase, and this is where I would expect someone like yourselves to be part of the hub. It's, you know, to make decisions. It's, you know, and, you know, working together with different. So moving forward, this, you would fit very well into this Stokesley hub where different stakeholders doing different things. So that's something for the future, really, Karen. All right.
Good. And Bryn's here tonight, so he can always answer questions on that. So that's good. And that reminds me, the other partnership we're part of, Helen sits on the Leven River Leven Catchment Partnership, which brings together the Environment Agency, the Tees Rivers Trust, local parish councils, and also our group sits on that. So a few things have been raised recently that Helen's then taken to the group. One is the amount of Himalayan balsam in Great Ayton and what we can do about that. The other Jenny had suggested was a project on low green in Great Ayton, where it'd be great to have more wildflowers, but also the path is in a terrible state. So there's something we can do that combines work on both. And also the discharge into the river at Great Ayton is something that everybody knows needs looking at. So a variety of things.
Yeah, just to note that Emma Sutcliffe, she's already made contact with the national parks. I mean, she is very, very concerned about, you know, the rising of the Leven starts at Warren Moor, and she's really on it now. I mean, obviously a landowner, but they have tenants in cleaning up the river. I know it isn't directly affected to climate change, but it's part of it about cleaning it, and she's very committed to doing that. So, and she's going to be engaged with that, and it will work alongside about cleaning up the river Leven and all the nutrients in it, really. But you know, it's on the outside of it, but it is still part of it, really, isn't it? Thank you.
Very much linked to things, so thanks. And one last thing that we haven't really talked about, put on the report, was Barry and I sit on, and Bryn and Heather sit on the group that's trying to get the active travel route between Great Ayton and Stokesley. We keep having like 2 steps forward, 1 back, and then a step to the side, and so we are still on the case. So it hasn't been forgotten about. Now, long-term aim is to very much have a route so that people can go from Great Ayton, students from Great Ayton can cycle to Stokesley to school, people can get access to shops and whatever. So it hasn't been forgotten about, but these things are an awful lot more complex than you would ever imagine possible. But we are still on the case. We haven't forgotten about it. And one of the last thing I think before we move on to actually sort of doing something together, today North Yorkshire Council have adopted their climate change strategy. Bryn's confirmed it actually went through, so that's good. So if you remember, we spent quite a bit of time looking at the consultation and feeding back, and people sort of filled it in themselves. We did it as a group. So I thought you might like to know, this is the report that went to the North Yorkshire County Council, North Yorkshire Council this morning. So they got over 1,700 responses to the consultation. So we were obviously part of that. And so they analysed that feedback, and then they made some amendments. So I thought it was interesting to know that sometimes you fill these things in and you think nothing ever happens. So a couple of the things that they amended were things I think that we were asking for. They've enhanced the communication and engagement section. So that's the bit in their strategy that's saying how they're going to engage with the public as such on climate change. So that's really good that we said that needed enhancing. That sort of has happened. That there will be an action plan following. You know, they've got their strategy, but now we need to know what they're actually going to do about it. So it was very much that there needed to be a climate change action plan. And what they're doing is looking at embedding that across each of the different services, so that all departments will have to consider climate change in whatever they do. And I think that's a major step forward, because that hasn't been the case.
Yeah. Sorry, Karen, it is, to be fair, it is already happening. I mean, you know, Highways, I raised this about maybe 7 months ago, that we'll be looking at the materials we were using and the way we do things, and the particularly highways, because there's an awful lot of like, you know, like different sorts of stuff they use for roads, and they are adapting what we do for that. Yeah, there has been a movement afoot for a while, but this is more or less putting it as legislation, I think, now. But yeah, we are looking, even the, you know, every meeting that we go to, and you challenge it and you say, well, you know, what are we doing? And yeah, we're all very aware of it. Just to reassure you, it is something that every councillor is aware of, and about how we do things like car sharing and things like that. It's very much part of what we do now, and it's not pushed to the side. It is a very conscious effort that we're all making. Thank you.
And I think, so what they're wanting to do is make sure they're going to publish the strategy, and that'll become available online and in libraries. but to include a lot of the things that they've been doing in the last year. So that sort of echoes what Heather's saying, really. They said that whilst it's not core council activities, they want to look at what the council can do to support reduction in agricultural emissions. So that had been missing. So it's good to see that in, particularly in a county like ours. They want to look at how they can support community action, particularly community energy developments, and an improved response to the council to the barrier of the electrical grid capacity. So I think they're all points that a lot of us fed to them. So it's good to see that that is being listened to. And I think there's one bit, so the key feedback from the consultation was that North Yorkshire Council should take as many climate responsible actions as fast as possible to respond to the climate emergency. So they've heard, that's what we were saying. So it's now up to us to keep sort of on their case, I think. And so the proposal was that they adopt the strategy. Bryn said they've done that, and they also were going to agree, and I assume they have, to sign up to Yorkshire and Humber Climate Commission's Climate Action Pledge. So they've done that as well. So that's demonstrating support to work in partnership. And they're going to see how they can support the local enterprise partnerships plans for carbon neutral by 2035 and carbon negative by 2050, I think, something like that. So things are happening, maybe not as fast as we want them to, and we need to sort of keep that pace there.
The only thing I'd say there, I've just been checking, they've dropped the word target to a little phrase called seek to.
Seek to, right, yes,
So
it's very sneaky, that one, isn't it?
It has to go through full council tomorrow.
It goes through full council tomorrow, right? So that's probably why there wasn't anything public yet. So what we thought was, yeah. So next steps are things that you can do as individuals. So talk to families, friends, colleagues. I know a lot of you do that anyway, but write to your MP, and that's something you as an individual, as a group, at our mailing list, into our meetings. Those are things to take away with you to think about. But we thought tonight that we would spend a bit of time just looking at an called the impact tool. So I'm just going to how well this will work for those via Zoom, but we'll see how it.
If you want to do the full 7 slides, you have. There's about 15 slides. You want those?
I don't mind. How about so I say my voice and
you have to say who would like to talk to this?
Yes.
Yeah. It depends. Do you put it? Should I go through it?
You go through it. Say
I mean, basically, we have about 15 slides described in a bit of detail. I thought it was easier than it was to take. So this is an impact tool. The idea is to get you an idea of the carbon footprint of your locality. So it breaks it down by ward, by parish. These are the things you can compare different wards, different parishes. And it's really identifying the areas where you can take action and so where your community can take action. So, I mean, I think that's probably going to say much what they said. I mean, it's very deep. What they're saying here is it's quite deeply done. They've taken lots of data to come up with these figures. They're not picked out of the air. There's a lot of methodology behind it because different ways of doing it come to slightly different answers. And basically helping you and your community. They've actually done carbon footprints in 2 ways. One, to look at consumption based. So this is really what we can, affect, and it comes back to what we're thinking about waste and things like this. The more we consume, and if you don't buy something, you don't go on a journey, you don't eat something, then that carbon hasn't been. They may be seen on the shelf, but I mean, there'll be at some stage on the line there'll be less carbon actually produced that way, and that's where the emissions come in. How you do whether you heat by oil or by gas, or whether you have a heat pump, will have an effect on that consumption-based carbon footprint. Territorial is taking account of everything that goes on inside that whole area. So it's also got all the road transport. If a big road goes through your area, there's a lot of carbon being used on that road. If you have a lot of agricultural space around you, there's a lot of carbon being, given that carbon dioxide being emitted through that. So that's sort of the basic idea around digital footprints. Spencer, Barry, anything I've missed in that? We sort of jump into. So what it then shows you is these two. So they have some quite nice little films to explain it, and it needs to say it's a little bit on the small side. Basically, for Stokesley, per household, there is 22.7 tons of carbon dioxide emitted per year due to consumption. So due to the house you're in, due to the food you're eating, due to the choices you make about travel, the choices you make about driving and taking the train and so on, and then the waste. There is the waste figure is very small because that's literally the energy used to get rid of that waste. It's not the energy consumed in a car or whatever when you throw it away, so to speak, but it's what's used to actually do it. So it's a relatively small figure for the individual. So that's Stokesley.
It doesn't a household, did you say?
That's per household, yeah. Let you look at the total. So you look at the total area.
Can I just ask? When we have the chap who came and talked to us from the Rotten Group, and he talked about the carbon footprint of waste, it was huge.
Yeah.
The amount of carbon emissions.
Because that's including in food and diet.
Right.
Right. So this is literally, I mean, it's some ways not a helpful way to do it, but it is quite useful because the point is you don't mean to buy waste, you mean to buy food, you mean to buy a computer, you mean to buy clothes. Those end up, that's already counted in your the waste is through the process. So the thing you make a big difference on is not buying so much food, not buying so many clothes, therefore less waste.
Yeah.
Is that regardless of how many people are in the house? So it could be 1 or 6.
Well, I mean, I think there is it will vary because this you haven't managed to do it per house.
No, I think they have. I think they've looked at the population for an area and divided it.
Okay. But that means each house has the same number of people in it.
That's true, yes.
Yeah. So what if there is for a single person household, certain parts of this, like the heating, will be largely just the same. The food will be different.
And we do have a sort of methodology paper, so that if anybody, as we ask questions, I can see whether I can come up with an answer.
So you can then break this down. I mean, so basically what I've highlighted there is for Stokesley, the main heating is gas, so which is this segment here, and that's 2.6 tons per year per household is due to the gas that's being used for heating. And you can go around, they've got breakdowns, slightly more things there. If we look at somewhere different, we look at Hutton Rugby instead, not too different to total figure, but now worse. Slightly worse. Yeah. It's a bit rugby. We could have shown you got it's a bit worse, but what is the big thing is heating by oil is nowhere near as efficient, and that is a big consumption because there's oil heating because you can't get gas. So you can then go through this, look at areas and look at where you can actually make a difference. And then, for what you said, we can compare Stokesley and Rugby. And this is now looking at the territorial total. So what you see is that basically Hutton Rugby should have more agriculture, which I think is not in a very helpful colour there, is it? Why is it actually green? So the cars going, I mean, Hutton Rugby, it's interesting. There is a big transport element in that because it presumably includes parts of the A19 in that bit.
So this is the parish.
This is the whole, it might be the ward actually rather than the parish.
The parish boundary crosses over the A19.
Okay, that's
so
what
some of the traffic that goes down there will be included in that.
Yeah.
In the same way that if you look at Osmotherley, it's only a small grouping really of residents, but the figures are skewed massively because of the A19.
So I think this is interesting because it shows how much carbon, but it's not something you can necessarily have a direct effect on unless you plan on going sitting in the middle of the A19, which I'm not suggesting. But it's interesting. You can see the comparison. So it is, Stokesley is obviously different. It has the A172, if my brain's going correctly, but it doesn't have the A19. So they're massively different bound. It has agriculture because there's lots of fields around it and so on. And these are obviously the parishes are going to be different sizes as well.
You can see the figure at the bottom. The diesel fueled railways is 0. So if you went to a line where there was.
So if you went to grade 8, there will be a diesel powered railway figure there because of the diesel.
What are F? F gases.
These are basically CFC type things, which are giving you, I think the CFCs that are giving you that effect. You release, so fridges, air conditioning, and so on, those have a big warming effect. Is that correct, Spence?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
The F-gas figure's probably larger here because there's a bigger industrial side. So they'll use refrigeration, I think.
Well, Cornwall will have a big refrigeration.
So that'll be the.
Corn's not in Stokesley.
That'll be the different. Well, I'm just trying to think of why it would be higher that. So those are the types of industries that use them. So they'll aggregate a figure. They're just data sets that they can go to electronic capture it. Yeah.
Do they capture construction materials, or are they?
Then they will capture differences in house building methods averaged across an area.
Right, okay, yeah. So the number of houses built would be added in.
Yeah, so I mean, Washington, for example, is going to look very different to somewhere around it that's an older village in terms of that.
Sorry, can I just ask, why is the waste management much higher in Hunt Rugby than in Stokesley?
Driving you know, you could get back through this data to find out. It may that's simply that there is a lot more effort to collect the rubbish. You've got to go down the street to find your house that's miles away, therefore you're using more diesel.
So these are the sorts of questions that we thought in a minute or two we could split up into sort of smaller areas and actually have a look at the data and maybe come up with some of those sort of answers.
So I think, you know, Fred, for example, at the front is very interested in the fact, you know, rubbish trucks come out a lot to collect what can be very empty bins for people. People don't always fill the bin. You know, is that, and this is where you see it in scale, but yes, it is significant amount of carbon dioxide, but compared to what's going to food and all the rest of it, it's relatively small. Not so we shouldn't try and tackle it, but it's something we need to have a think about. So that's really what the tool is. I mean, I suggest, yeah, we have a play with it. We need to log on to some of these computers, or I can bring it up on here as well, and we can do some direct questions.
Before we go into that, it occurred to me the one thing I didn't do was our membership lasts for a year and it sort of ran out at the end of June. So I need to know whether people want to join again. Last year was the princely sum of £1. We do have the facility tonight to change that figure, or we can keep it as £1 because it's just a nominal amount. We didn't want to put anybody off being a member. So I've got a list of members from last time, so you can put a tick for renew, and if you weren't a member last time and you want to be, then and you can always £1 if you want. So while Simon's working out maybe the logging in, if I send this round, Helen, I apologise that your name's down at the bottom of the list. It was to do with the mailing list and how things were on. So yes, I know, and that's what we need to clear up. Richard was taken off it as well. So not on, but we said at the bottom. Glitches that I need to sort out, having sort of looked around the rooms. I've got a little pot here to put the pounds in. And then, do we want a consensus of opinion? Do you want, was there anything else you want to ask about the group before we split up? And we thought it was actually better to have an interactive thing. And on your chairs, there is a set of questions, impact tool questions. These are the questions that come in the report you can download in your area. So this is the carbon footprint report for Great Ayton. And it gives you the information you find online and then questions to think about. So what we thought would be useful, there might only be yourself, maybe from Billsdale, but is there somewhere a similar size to Billsdale? I mean, you live near Billsdale, so yeah, you're Billsdale, right? And you're Billsdale, there we are. Right, we've got Billsdale team, right? So we've got a few people from Stokesley. We've got George and Audrey and at least Brydon that I can picture, and Jack. We've got quite a number from Hutton Rugby, so we have a Hutton Rugby contingent. And Jill, you're now in Stokesley, is that right? Yeah. Jenny and I think, oh, we've got two at the back from Stokesley as well, and Helen. So there's a big Stokesley contingent, brilliant. Busby, where would you see yourself sitting?
Carlton, I suppose.
With Carlton, yeah. Have we got anybody from Carlton?
All right, Great Broughton.
Great Broughton, I don't think there's anybody here tonight from Great Broughton. Is it a similar setting to Billsdale maybe and sort of, or do you, are the two of you?
70 households.
70 households. Yeah, or somebody from Stokesley will come and join you, have a discussion. And there's only 2 of us from Great Ayton. So the Stokesley one is the biggest one. So what I suggest is that if all Stokesley people gather at the front and decide whether you want to look at it in 2 groups or whether you want the main one here to look at between all of you from Stokesley. And then we set a few computers up to look at Billsdale, Hutton Rugby, Jenny and I, maybe I think about Great Ayton.
We're a bit flummoxed, unfortunately, North Yorkshire Council is shut at the moment, so we can't get onto the computer.
You can.
All right.
Of course you can.
But yeah, if you just
Carol said it may not work.
it will do it.
Right. Jill's asked. Jill knows how to do
Can
it.
you give us an easy login, like SSB start one do?
No, I've got your pin number.
Right.
Which is 1, 2, 3, 4. You want all of them?
Yeah.
Do you want all of them?
We'd like to, well, let me do 2 quick ones.
And is it a bit hot in here or is it?
Yes,
me?
very
Yeah.
hot.
Windows wide, okay. So, do we want to have what? I'm just come back about 10 to 9 and discuss what we found. Give us half an hour to have a look. So, do we want to say? Do our friends on Zoom want to stay with us, or do you want to leave now? I don't know where they are. I've already given up. But thank you for
I'm
joining.
still here,
Yeah. Oh, no.
but I might come back again at 10 to 9.
Karen, it's Heather. Do you mind if I bow out? Because I've had a bit of a long day and I'm uneasy here, and I'll try and get back in, but I can't hear very well. It's not very clear to me. So, you know, is it 10 to 9? You want me to try and get back in again? Can you hear me? Sorry, can anyone hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, because it's not. I can't hear a lot. What's going on at the minute? I can't understand what I mean.
Can you send a message?
Sorry, it's breaking up a bit, really.
Drop out now. If you could come back at 10 to 9, that'd be fantastic. And thanks for joining us.
Okay, I'll stay
I'll
logged
do the same.
I'll stay logged in, and then I'll hear you when you call me back again.
I'll come back at 10 to 9. Thank you. Bye.
I've got to mention about your Stokesley. Stokesley and his
calories. Well, that's just on one food. Right. Who hasn't done the collection bowl?
That must have found on Garrett. I'm gonna look at it. So that's why we need an information.
Take some thought to make it scale.
Talk about everything that you just said about grants and that they would help you around the line. Well, that's not just an information.
10 kilometres.
What kind of direction you need not to say that you have in bodies.
They'd have to control them.
So do you need to fill your roof then to achieve the 40% reduction? Do you need to fill a good roof space? It must depend on roof space.
So that when that sun starts, it's the system operator, but this she's EV charging points.
We've got until the 8th. Just random holiday. Do you want to share that with us? I mean, I think I'll get the research. I won't hear it. And I think the other thing is retrofit thing. It's just driving away. They're going to have to do all the service.
Yeah.
We've got so one around the other side. Take me down to the new.
Getting solar panels and all these other things. The age of the house does make up. Certain elements in terms of the electrical connection. First house. I'm sure it's still
Reminds me of the distribution of the tile.
Well, I mean,
it's not trying to influence things. Literally, that's the important part. If you want this, it's if you're looking at PDF for joining, build up the experience and then
Influence by giving information. I'm not running anything. We have already, certainly after we put in double basin to the highest spec at the time. We've had the capital walls done and the roof has been fully insulated, checked and insulated again. But in fact, it is, we're one of the few houses on that still have, it's not underdrawn. I just got rafters with clay tile over the top. That's to say, not all houses can have this. It doesn't. Yeah, and we should do.
Fitted a divert that diverts the end of so to heat the water. So from April, there's no electricity from the grid going into increasing the water. So the water from an energy point of view, it's suggested around 66% of the energy costs are heating the water, then that makes an enormous difference. Three
Energy is heating your water.
Sorry?
Did you say 66% of your energy?
That's what we suggest. Yeah.
I mean, I've got my little what's it, my smart meter and my TV. And I mean, the thing that makes that go up or not is central heating. Because I've been telling my grandmother, get out of the shower, you've been in it for 20 minutes. And it makes very little difference. It's the consumption on that is high there. No, no, we should do an information.
Well, this should have it. It's coming directly from the hub. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think our palm trees, say, chop down. The first thing you do is to look through. Okay, I'm actually doing some reduction. So you type in drop. No, I mean, what the government says is that have you carrying businesses, which you can't do. That's going to have to change. So, you bring insulating your house. And one thing is national basically stone has to stay stone. But we can't put render on the outside. It can be taken off in 50 years. Then your house would become things like that. We're just great. But you know when you zero. Well, no. We need to get to zero because then you put in your 6 tons. A ton that can capture elsewhere could be made. We have less capital in the field. So instead of a big positive figure, it becomes a small positive figure. It actually becomes a small negative. Which, because we've got less there, is taking off. I mean, the idea is regenerative. I'm sorry, I mean, I have said there is farmers that don't share. You can't carry on something when we do things the money we have. If you use your money to sort of you employ another 5 people if you use that until you've got payback and so on. Same with a field. We want Well, I mean, I see for example, no, they will catch it because they still aren't giving it off. So that's
It's just not it's with the next zero, it's talking about the zero, trying to get, you know, drop a third off, I think, very through. I'm still fine.
If you want to disagree,
I mean, there was a
really good report by the Centre for Technology and Zero Carbon Britain. It's about 6 years ago, so various people say, basically first due power down. So right, we only take one flight each every 2 years. But that gets you rid of 30%, like you say. Yeah, I think it's like a car travel, it's well, needs to be open transport. Yes. But then, but I mean, I feel when you're actually producing, it needs to pay back to it. It's like 5 years or less than that.
So by yeah, I'm still using a lot of it.
No. So that will help. So they could use it because but then it's you lose a lot through the route to start with.
People take everyone says that No, I don't.
What we delayed.
We're reading time.
Well, no, but see, you know, don't kill off all your sea life. Stop putting sewage in them. Well, I mean, the OBR does it's basically said but it's still be changed.
It's not.
I mean, it's that which
It's the only challenge. Then you'd have to technologically, what else? What else are you going to get
Well, and not. Put money in the account, but signing the book.
I mean, the original book margin is worth reading. It's basically
So then you have
yes,
something
in place roads, it should be a last choice. You know, because it actually, I mean, what they're going to do with teeth in the town, they're going to burn gas and CO2.
it's quite hard to get everything up to date. And that's what
so really, when there's something that actually 90% of CO2, and that comes back to your life, comes back to not being zero. So that way,
sorry, none of that's all that is just I think that's why it takes a while to drive something. A bit of history, a few years we changed around. It's all got let's say you increase that's really all that's a project back 10 back into balance.
The company is being done that system over time. Over the deep sea. It's equally the ground, yeah, with the trees on top of the river, but underneath it's into there.
Actually, you can't. Actually, before the Industrial Revolution, it's just the Industrial Revolution. Before, let's say 1980. We weren't burning any oils, but we were in the status quo. We had what about all the new stuff?
Well, all the new stuff, some of it can kill you. The sea is taking and that will have some effect, but you know, we need to try and moderate it. Oh, because of the water, also because of the huge problem. And this is why people say, I don't it's never changed. We are.
That zero is here's where the carbon. I think that my space project might better take where's that CO2 go? Well, I can tell you the North Yorkshire. I mean, the government is going in. I've come back a bit. Nothing else is going. We're going to grow the rainbow tree. In 1890, let's say to humans, the effect of humans are actually it's the CO2 line so much because it was imbalanced. It's imbalanced. So a vibrant nature is imbalance. So if we get a factor of vibrant nature to imbalance, everything else falls off my better.
You can do something we can do to make that.
All respect
Health feels like it wouldn't be the natural.
That is such you don't need to get better. Let's say 15.
For example, we're not option more.
1820 was all the choice.
1820 wasn't. That goes back to
76.
No, it goes back to 5000 BC. When whichever one of these Neolithic they took the nutrients out and then they basically moved on to somewhere else.
Can't they just have more
that landscape must be up, but it's not the optimal carbon. Some places that you find trees really represents another place. You've lost a few dives and let the piece build up. That was not I'm just such a tiny not like 15. Yes, I know. That's the wall, and it's just got a lot more. Yeah, what you see is a huge bits of that is transport, a huge bit is agriculture. So if you tackle agriculture, you tackle transport. You've done and then you reduce the. But that's then you've got a half. I mean, have a look at, you know, I have to take you through this. Yes. Where's the zero? No, at the end of the day, that's right. It doesn't have I balance the agriculture. My spectacles, everything I do creates and I create less by having smaller spectacles, but I still am capturing everything. There is carbon. You think the lab, you capture all the group. We're not going to advance to 320 ppm. But I'm saying conversations. Ultimate number of trees. Then we've got other ones.
Can I bring you into the conversation? Yeah. So we might have some people joining us back in on Zoom now. I'm not sure whether they're there or whether it's after 10 to, which is why they might have got given up.
Yep, I'm here.
That's still working, right. I've had to stop some very interesting conversations. Jenny and I were just getting into sorting out Great Ayton.
Sorting out Great Ayton, excellent.
She's off to collect the food in the food share. Yeah, in any minute now. Yeah. So a couple of ideas that Jenny and I have come up with. One, housing is obviously quite a big sector, and we know that hopefully we're going to be part of a retrofit advice service, us not providing the advice, but us sharing information that advice service will be available. And we wondered about having an event a bit like the transport event. So something in Stokesley Town Hall, where we brought in people like Broadacres. St George was saying, what's happening at Broadacres? So there is quite a lot going on with Broadacres. So, and there's for the other building organisation, builders or people that we might want to bring together. And then we could share that information around the different villages as well. So that was one thing we came up with. The other was to do an audit of what pubs and restaurants and cafes are offering from a plant-based, reduced meat sort of options, to then maybe share ideas between restaurants and cafes, or there's a growing market and we want to encourage more choice, but we need to know what's there first. So I think those are as far as we got, weren't they? Yeah. Any other ideas? What about Billsdale? Anything sort of crop up that you thought, oh,
housing used to be our big week.
Right, yeah.
Wasn't start not in solar panels, things like that. So at the moment, the education would be the
right. So hopefully this new project that we're going to get involved in will help you. Yes. Okay. Right, okay. Stokesley was a big Stokesley contingent. And that makes it more difficult sometimes.
I think, I mean, I think one of the things was there was quite a lot of focus on energy.
Right.
And it was suggested that there are funds available for people to actually install, even, you know, houses where their income levels are relatively low. That schemes apparently for installing, giving grants for installing solar panels. So if that is the case, it may well be worthwhile somebody's literally testing that out and seeing whether or not A, it is that easy, and B, just how, you know, and if it is, then that can be, that information can be shared.
To do a test now in readiness for being part of a project.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
In Great Broughton, in Rosewood, Broadacres, I don't know where they got the money from, whether it's a grant or whatever. All of Rosewood now are having solar panels, and it's an initiative that it's they're the first ones in the area for Broadacres to do, and they're going to get a feasibility study on it, and if they all like it, then they'll roll it out. Because I was talking with Broadacres today to find out where they're going to move it next.
Right.
So it's Rosewood, they're all being done.
So we did wonder, Jenny and I, whether it'd be good to have somebody from Broadacres come and talk to us as a group. So they're one of our local housing associations. So therefore, because I know they've done some case studies of retrofitting properties. So it'd be interesting to hear from their experience of what they've done. Would that be of interest to people?
I asked them as well today about that, and they tend to do meetings maybe twice a year.
Right.
They've just done Stokesley, so it's a rolling program.
Right. Yeah.
So it's usually twice a year.
Right. Jenny's got a different contact at Broadacres, so we can maybe try Jenny's contact.
Oh, Jenny.
Oh,
Jenny.
Been Andy Powell really quite well. So
Right.
Andy, yeah, the CEO.
So Bryn might help as well.
Yeah, they'll get Bryn on board.
That sounds good. Yeah. Okay, so done there. There's Swainby. Is it Swainby? Or
Swainby was kind of someone was elsewhere, and so Swainby was me. Swainby was really great Busby, and we were interested in looking at. But Swainby appears as Swainby and Osmoldy.
Right.
And the Osmoldy, like we talked about the A19, so we have a massive road, absolutely part of it. And then we're wondering about actually when things are distorted like that, what can you, in situations like that, what could you do? But what interesting looking at, I think of all the areas, Great Busby's got one of the smallest carbon production. Yes, it has indeed. John, there's a theory about this.
Yes, well, I've never seen anybody in Great Busby, so I think no one ever comes out.
I mean, that does raise another problem, that because we no longer have a parish meeting, which was the only forum for discussing anything, whether it was ash dieback or village green or carbon footprints, it was very difficult to sort of discuss anything with neighbours. We wouldn't like to knock on anybody's door and say, you know, we thought about so.
So your parish meeting is dissolved. Our parish meeting never meets. That's an area I'm concerned about, is local democracy from a parish meeting point of view. I think to another sort of conversation, so I might have a conversation with you about that. Separately.
Yes, because we might combine with people, those that remain could combine with Carlton, where there's a more active one.
Right.
Well, it's a parish council, which we don't have in Great Busby.
Yeah. So we did invite any parish council or parish meeting that had an email address for. So lovely.
Right.
Yeah. And Billsdale have already discussed the document and talked it through, haven't you? So that's worth doing. That's good. Yeah. Right. Fun Rugby is the last one, I think. Let's have a talk about something else. Funding proposal. So do you want to tell us about your funding proposal you were looking at instead? Or not? Or is that a secret? It's not a secret.
With respect to the in how we can be aware of that. The full effect of the transport set getting what those good routes in the 19th that stop the houses into the one area that we could potentially
make a difference. Yeah.
What critical, it's got, that's the 171 tons in the territory.
So therefore, the household consumption one's maybe the better one to look at.
Well, if you've got a big rush, everyone goes and actually you have the best improvement.
Yeah, if you ban. I figured out it's a real example. The A19, regular transport, all this.
Right.
Yeah, we could have, we think about how we have solutions with got one view and if you had a sign as you came to a the area on the A19, that you switch on your engine with people on.
Yeah. So,
That's really the problem with it, it skews the figures, so you think, but as long as you understand it, and if you produce the PDF report, that tells you, the preamble tells you all about this and says, you know, what happens to pairs, and, you know, it's quite open about, we can only use data and access. And that is, if the drain line 10 mile long, that's how much drain line uses, the road X mile long, it gives out that much, so it's not ideal, but when that's going to the town on it, you just literally go to the places that are wealthier, and you've got a so we should be targeting wealthier places. But there is 10% of that is more than 10% of.
wow, so those are some questions for you to think about as you go away. I think there might be, is there a meeting in August, Simon? Are we having a meeting in August? Do you need one to get ready for the show?
I'll be updating all this, yeah, any volunteers to show, much appreciated.
Yeah, so we meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, in here.
When's the show?
Show's 26th of August, yeah. So we now need to think what we do with some of those ideas. And this is George's last AGM because he's heading south. So it'll be interesting to see the carbon footprint of where you go. So thank you for your contributions. You always raise lots of questions for us to think about. And one of the questions he's leaving us with is we've got all these ideas, but how are we actually going to measure all of this to show that we're actually making a difference? And I'm not sure whether this tool will help us or whether we need to see North Yorkshire Council's targets, aspirated, what are they called? Not targets, maybe, when they come out. So it's how we actually measure the difference we're making. So some things it's very easy. So like George looking at his house or somebody putting up new solar panels, but the saving of the food waste, so Jenny taking the surplus food to somewhere, do we want to go to the detail of measuring that? What is it we want to measure? So as you sit on the beach or climb a hill or sit in your garden or whatever, have a think about how we actually measure, because we've done a lot of things over the last year and there's a real good buzz, but how do we reach the people we haven't reached? How do we actually make the difference we want to make? So thank you, George.
None of us have talked about
Yes, thank you.
None of us have, how do we address consumption, which has been huge in all of these, and then none of us have talked about it.
So that's like
It's very individual choice, isn't it?
It's a very difficult thing to-
Taking that pledge personally.
So it's encouraging people then.
I think if you listen to different people, so the repair cap is a big thing. That's saving new things being bought. So because if we can repair something, then somebody doesn't buy something new. I think my mother-in-law asked Jenny where she went to do her clothes shopping, and Jenny said, "I don't buy any." So you know, it's sort of those conversations about what do we do about fashion. What do we do about buying the latest iPhone or whatever?
Burn Amazon down.
Burn Amazon down, right?
Not the rainbow.
Not the rainbow. Yes. Right.
The other thing is in terms of time. I mean, I say I'm a great follower of fashion, but it's 2 years later by the time it's reached the charity shop. I'm just 2 years later.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us are making those decisions not to consume, but it's how we share that. Yeah.
And one of the things that I would do mostly because it's things that people mention or things that are talking in the news, but I'm trying to perhaps develop a section on sustainable consumerism within the monthly update as well, and just giving kind of little pointers about that. If people would find that useful.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the things we were talking about, which were the best. I think what sparked it was when you were talking about the types of household cleaning fluids that produce less phosphate going into the region. And then I thought, well, maybe each month I'll try and focus on a different thing. And because it's one, it's reducing it, but some things you have to buy. So the things that you do buy, make sure they're sustainable as possible.
Yeah. So try it and we'll see whether, that sounds good. So, should we finish now? And so thank you, Jill and Barry, for opening up, helping us get off the computers. Be great to have a bit of help to move the chairs, the purple chairs, just go back into a circle. So thank you to those on Zoom if you're still there and for joining us, and it sort of works, so that's good. Right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody.